Okay, so I have a script here just to keep track of what I'm going to say, but basically for our vehicle, we were given the Ford Fusion, and our concern was to identify what was the problem with this low brake pedal. So to begin our diagnosis, we went on a road test, and we went on one individually, and when I first went on the road test, I could see the major irregularity in the brake pedal because you had to step literally almost to the ground to just get brake effort from the vehicle. So my initial hypothesis immediately was just air in the system. So to do a removal of air in the system, a proper procedure would be to bleed the brakes. And I checked in with my group once we were in the shop, and I told them my initial hypothesis, and they also agreed with me as well. So before bleeding the brakes, we first did a visual inspection of the reservoir and checked the level of brake fluid, and it wasn't full, but it also wasn't even close to empty, so it was at a good level. So once that was done, we began to do our brake bleeding procedure. And for these photos that I'm going to be showing right now, these were some of the photos taken during the procedure. This first picture is the location of the bleeder screw, and you can see it right there in the far right corner. This is a picture of the container and the tube that we'll be using to bleed the system. This is the setup of the brake bleeding procedure. My combination wrench is just on top of that washer to loosen and tighten the flow of the brake fluid. In person, you would see the air bubbles just flowing from the bleeder screw to the container, and once you see no bubbles, that's when you know you are done. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into the bleeding brakes procedure. So to begin your procedure after you're done doing your road test and your visual inspection, you hoist your vehicle and you remove the tires. And note that there is a sequence for every vehicle when bleeding the brakes, so you want to look in service literature. Luckily, Peyton, who is in my group, remembered the sequence from his previous bleeding brakes lab test that we did. So the procedure was right rear, right front, left front. And also note, and I know this is like more towards the end, but once you're done bleeding the brakes, remember to add brake fluid in the reservoir as much as needed. You always want to do that after bleeding the brakes because some of that brake fluid comes out in the end. So once you have the tires removed, you want to identify where the bleeder screw is. It's always easy to identify. And you have the service procedure. You want to have somebody in the vehicle. Once you have the end of the tube connected to the bleeder screw and you have your combination wrench on the washer and you have loosened it enough, you want to ask the person who's in the driver's seat to hold down on the brake pedal, and then you should just watch those air bubbles just flow and flow. And once you get no air bubbles, you tighten that washer, and once that washer's tightened, you want to tell your person that's in the driver's seat to let go of the brakes. And sometimes if you want more clarity, and this is what me and my group did, we would open it and then see the air bubbles, close it, and then we would do it again just to make sure we didn't miss it, like any air bubbles at all. So yeah, that is the procedure, and you repeat the same in the sequence for the other 3 tires. Once that is done, we didn't put the tires on just yet. We lowered the vehicle a little bit and just enough for all of us again to get in the vehicle and feel how the pedal felt. The pedal felt a lot better. And after that, we just put the tires back on and we went for a final road test to finally just verify that that was the real issue. And once we went on that road test, you could feel how firm the brake pedal was compared to last time. So that was the initial test procedure, bleeding the brakes. Okay, so during the bleeding of the brakes, you could tell that the brakes were irregular by watching the air bubbles in general. You could watch those air bubbles just travel from the bleeder screw to the container. And those air bubbles were occurring the brake pedal from not getting enough pressure to apply full force to those brake pads. And basically, in smaller context, the air bubbles were consuming some of that pressure. And that's no bueno. So, to wrap this up, basically, to answer the last question, how was this final diagnosis changing our initial hypothesis? And it didn't really change. We were right from the first try. I first got to my hypothesis, like I said before. I remembered from the previous lab test that we had done, I think it was last week when we did this, and I remembered how spongy and low the brake pedal felt. So I just immediately just assumed air in the system, and it was my first initial hypothesis. And then I checked in with my teammates, and it was the same thing. So yeah, this was a successful procedure. Well done.